Reporting for JWeekly Canada, I'm Susan Minuk at the TIFF Lightbox for the highly anticipated 25th anniversary screening of Sunshine, with proceeds benefiting the Toronto Holocaust Museum and Stand With Us Canada. I'm honored to be joined by the legendary filmmaker and producer, Robert Lantos. Sunshine tells the powerful story of 3 generations of a Hungarian Jewish family navigating assimilation and anti-Semitism across tumultuous historical eras. The film premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in 1999 and went on to win 3 European Film Awards and 3 Canadian Genie Awards, including Best Motion Picture. Welcome, Mr. Lantos.
Thank you.
Sunshine has stood the test of time as a cinematic masterpiece.
That's very kind of you to say.
Absolutely. What does it mean to you to be here 25 years later and celebrating with this special screening today?
Well, this screening is partially a celebration and equally it's about to mark what is actually going on in our world today, right here in Canada. So it's not fully a celebration. This film was made 25 years ago by my friend, the great director István Szabó, and myself, as a cautionary tale, because we were witnessing the rise of anti-Semitism's ugly head all over again in Western Europe. And much of this film deals with what happened in the early days of when anti-Semitism swept Europe before World War II. Back then, what I never considered was that what was then a cautionary tale would actually turn into today's reality of all places in Canada, the country where my parents came to escape all of that, here on the streets of Toronto and Montreal. So it's an anniversary, and it's also marking something that has come true unexpectedly.
Yes, and also we're just showing this screening today, just days after the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. So how do you think its message will resonate with today's world?
This film, this is not a documentary. This is a movie. And the stories that it tells it's a work of fiction, it tells stories of fiction, except that they closely parallel some true stories, including stories that are from within my own family. And this is a film that takes the Jew hatred from its origins and traces it as to where it leads and the catastrophic consequences of it. I think for anybody who, as I have, considered the most important words in her or his vocabulary, never again, if you take those words seriously, then the story this film tells is a story that is unfolding on our streets right now, and in our universities, and in our labor unions, and in our government circles, and at all levels, and in school boards. And the real, my not so secret motivation for having this screening is to make that parallel clear to anyone who doesn't actually yet see it.
Right, so given your Hungarian roots and your personal history, were there any moments in particular, which I'm sure there are, in the film that were very meaningful to you?
I'll share with you something personal that I haven't shared.
Okay.
And not sure why I'm doing it right here, but I will.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
for that.
one part of this film, this is an epic film. It's 3 hours long.
Yeah.
It traces 3 generations of a Hungarian Jewish family, which over the course of time assimilates and changes their Jewish-sounding name to a Hungarian name, and by the 3rd generation converts to Catholicism.
Right.
And the character played by Ray Fiennes, who converts to Catholicism and changes his name.
Yes.
Does it so that he could represent Hungary in international sports. He's Hungary's national fencing champion, and in order to be allowed to go to the Olympic Games, which happened to be Hitler's Olympics, the 1936 Berlin Olympics, he needs to not be Jewish. Jews couldn't represent Hungary. And so it's based on the true story of Olympic fencing champion. He converts, he goes to the Olympics, he wins the gold medal. And then what happens next is, well, an important part of this film. It certainly doesn't save him from the horrendous fate of 80% of Hungary's Jewish population. But my mother was a Hungarian swimming champion. And she didn't convert and didn't change her name, and couldn't go to the Olympics. In fact, her times didn't count because she was allowed to compete in Hungary, but being Jewish, her results didn't count. So I grew up knowing that, and so that part of, it's one of the several stories this film tells, but that part of this film is perhaps the most personal.
Well, thank you for sharing that with me. Because I was going to mention about how the family changed their name from Sunshine to Shores, and to survive.
Yeah, it was actually Sonnenschein.
Sonnenschein. I'm not
Right.
pronouncing it right. Right.
Sonnenschein,
Yeah.
which happens to mean, which means sunshine.
And then
Yeah, and
Shores
then they went
is
to
fate, right,
That's
in
right.
Hungarian. So, getting to that point, how important is the theme of identity and adoption in the film with the change of names? Because it does come full circle, right? At the end, when he realizes.
At the end, he changes his name back.
Exactly.
And that's the third generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Changes his name back because it's all about, as he says towards the end of the film, breathing, it's living freely and breathing freely. And if you have to hide who you are, and you have to even hide your own name, there's no way you can ever breathe freely.
How did you portray the emotional impact of historical events like the Nazi occupation and the communist regime on the family?
The Jews who survived the Holocaust in Hungary, for many of them, they saw communism as salvation, because communism, in principle, basically doesn't believe in any religion. So they at first, many Jews, including members of my own family, who saw in communism the possibility of leaving it all behind and just being like everybody else and getting lost in the crowd. As it turns out that didn't work out that way, and this film shows exactly how. It begins with the final generation of the Ray Fiennes character becomes a communist agent for it was called the AVO, the Hungarian equivalent of the KGB. Rounding up, his motivation is to round up the fascists. Until it turns out that he also gets rounded up, because Jew hatred somehow continued, even though under communism, all religion allegedly was equally frowned upon, but Jews were particularly frowned upon. It didn't end. I discovered I was Jewish accidentally under communism. I didn't know. My parents never told me I was Jewish, but in school, when I was 8 years old, there was a kid in my class who called me a stinking Jew, and we got into a fight. And my parents were called to the principal's office, and that's the first time I heard the word Jewish.
Why wouldn't they have told you before?
Because they, like most Hungarian Jews who survived,
Yes.
felt that the one good thing about communism would be that you'd all blend into the crowd and you wouldn't have to be different. And that turned out to be an illusion. And this film deals with that illusion.
Well, thank you very much for being our guest here at JWeekly Canada and for chatting with me. And I'm anticipating a big crowd today. And and it's very important to see this film. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.